Welcome to The State of Us. Real people with honest opinions and the future of responsible media. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
We can balance the federal budget by 2030. It's possible. Lots of things are possible in this country. Today, Lance and I are going to dedicate the show to talking about an idea presented by No Labels in their policy playbook. So this actually came out a while ago because it's officially the No Labels policy playbook for America's next president. And the subheading here is a No Labels roadmap for victory in 2016 and a national strategic agenda for America. You know, this came out a little bit ago, but we're covering this one today because Lance and I agreed that we haven't spoken about the national debt much recently, and it's been an area of interest for this program for pretty much since our inception, I think, especially for a few years there. It was a big talking point. So we're going to look at the validity of it today, review some stats, where we are, and what's next. But of course, we couldn't begin this conversation without
your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
Money, 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 money. That's what we're talking about today, folks.
That's what we're talking about. So why do you care?
Your money.
That's right. And Lance took the words literally right out of my mouth. It is your money. The federal debt held by the public will exceed 100% of our gross domestic product by 2039. So in regular, non-economist terms, that means that by 2039, the amount that America produces will actually now not be enough to offset the amount that we owe. That's bad. That's bad when that happens. That's
not
right.
good. Think of personal financing. That's not good.
If in your personal finances you owe more than your assets are worth, that's bad. Or more than you produce, I guess. $827 billion is the amount of interest annually that we will be paying by 2024. That's a lot of interest.
What's that credit card company where you can call them if you're in debt to the credit cards? It's not a credit card company.
Yeah.
But they negotiate down your debt.
National Debt Consolidation.
There you go.
Loan.
You don't actually have to pay as much.
Yeah.
So we should all take out a credit card to pay the national government and then call them.
Okay.
Because they swear you don't have to pay back your debt.
Mm-hmm.
That seems so wrong to me. Right. Sorry.
You don't. Yeah.
I'm trying to solve the problem.
You're entitled to not pay what you owe.
Right.
But
you bought the services and the goods, but you don't have to actually pay for them. So
what No Labels here is looking to do is how can we actually pay for them? And the first step in addressing the national debt is balancing the budget, because of course you can't begin to examine how to pay it down if it just keeps going up. So with that,
a novel concept.
I know. Yeah, it took some real geniuses to come up with that. There is some really great stuff here. It's not by all belittling them, but it should be common sense. And I think Lance and I and the American people's frustration
obviously it isn't, because we're not doing it.
Right.
It's not common sense because the people in charge of the government aren't getting it done.
It should be. The policy principles, so just a few important things. There's some assumptions made, as there is with anything, and the assumptions that we're working under are the policy principles brought forward should be socially equitable, preserving a secure social safety net for those who truly need it, credible, providing a path to financial sustainability that's based on realistic assumptions with transparent objections, reasonable. We obviously can't attempt to eliminate government revenues and expenses by completing a balanced budget every time, but instead the government should reduce the burden that the federal debt imposes on our economy to a stated level and ensure that it will no longer be rising after a certain point. It needs to be comprehensive, obviously, and it needs to be pro-growth. So with that, the problem, as I've already started to outline, couple additional stats, about $21.5 trillion at the time of this episode's recording is what your current U.S. national debt is, according to the national debt clock. $3.7 trillion is the amount that the government spent in 2015. $3.7 trillion were our expenses. It's hard to kind of fathom. Now, what did that 3.7 trillion go to? Because I think this is something we overlook a lot. Where is the money going? And I want your commentary here, Lance, too, if you have thoughts. Any guess what the largest single expense was?
Interest on the debt.
No, that's a good guess. But we talked about it recently. Yep.
Social Security.
There you go.
Ding. I knew that. I was just trying to heighten the audience's interest there.
Okay.
I knew it was Social Security because I cheated. I looked.
That's right. You saw it ahead of time.
Yes.
Okay. See there, full disclosure, right? He could have taken look how smart I am. But he saw this before we started. I forgot about that. So yeah, 24%.
Hey, not bad for an old man though to remember it.
That's right.
Because I looked at
That's
it like
pretty good.
30 minutes ago.
You're doing well.
My short-term memory is still functioning today.
Yes. Now you could remember it was first. Did you remember it was 24%?
I knew it was in the 20s.
Okay.
I would have said 22%, but second is 22%.
That's right.
See? All right. It's visual there. I'm a visual learner.
Medicare, Medicaid, and CHIP. 19% goes to defense and international security assistance. So number third on our expenses is defense. Number third?
What number is third?
Number three on our expenses. I didn't even catch that. See, I was just going to keep going.
Oh, that's all right. I couldn't let that one go. My bad.
12% safety net programs and 6% debt interest. And then everything else, which includes federal retirees, veterans, transportation, infrastructure, science, medical research, education, non-security, international assistance, and anything that wasn't mentioned.
Right. The things we argue about.
Yeah.
Is what, 4%?
Yeah.
Those are the things we argue about.
So 24 plus 22 plus 19 plus 12 plus 6. So yeah. The remaining amount is marginal. the stuff that
we spend all the time arguing because
right.
We won't discuss Medicaid, Medicare. We won't discuss Social Security.
And part of the reason
now, but what's 6%? And I should have done this for you before. We should be prepared. But what's 6% of $3.7 trillion? Because that's what the interest is. I mean, how much money? I mean, is that like 500 billion? Oh no, 6%.
So here, we'll give you an idea.
1% would be 3 point. Okay.
Of federal.
That's too many zeros.
Of federal spending.
I can't move my zeros fast enough.
So one of the problems, and you brought this up, is mandatory programs and spending will take over more of the federal budget, crowding out the discretionary programs, which is all the stuff we argue about. A growing share of federal spending will go to support mandatory spending like Social Security, Medicare, etc., and interest payments, with less available for all other government spending on priorities such as education, health research, veterans, homeland security, defense, environment. So here's just a picture to help everybody understand the situation. In 1970, total spending was 19% of GDP, okay? 62% of that spending was discretionary. You know, whatever we come up with that we want to spend it on. 31% was mandatory and 8% was the net interest. Okay. Fast forward to 2015. We're at 21% of GDP for all spending. Of that spending, 32% is discretionary. So we went from 62 to 32. Big drop. 62% of it is mandatory. Basically, it flips. And interest is at 6% net interest. So you're from 1970 to 2015, your discretionary and mandatory spending basically flipped, is what happened. Fast forward to 2050, if we don't change things, you're looking at 27% of GDP is what federal spending will make up. Only 19% will be discretionary. 62% will be mandatory. So the amount that's mandatory stayed the same. It'll go from 62% in 2015 to 62% in 2050. But here's the big kicker. This is what causes the problem. Net interest. So we were at 8% in 1970, 6% in 2015. 19% of federal spending will be paying the interest. Almost a fifth of everything we spend will be to pay the interest. That's a big problem. So you get that it's bad, right? I mean, this hopefully has laid that out, that we're not in a good spot. But the good news is, part of this, as the name of it implies, the policy playbook, Lance is going to start taking us through what the proposed 6 solutions are to get the budget balanced and start getting our debt under control by 2030.
And these aren't like pick and choose. These are the 6 things that No Labels came up with.
All 6.
That could do it. So you can't say, oh, well, I like 1, 4, and 5, but we're not going to do 2, 3, and 6 and get a balanced budget.
Right.
These all have to go in. And what they did is they came up with these, and then they went to Congress and said, okay, Congress in 2015, and said, so the makeup's a little bit different now, but still, said, how many of you support this? And then they also took it to the public and said, how many people in the public agree with this? So the first one is a Fiscal Responsibility Act. So to pass a new law, which would prohibit Congress from passing budgets that would increase the national debt as a share of the overall economy, except in cases of war, disaster, or recession. 80% in 2015, 80% of the public supported that idea. 76% of Democrats supported it. 87% of Republicans supported it. Very interesting there. I'll let Justin comment. And 78% of independents supported it. So it has 3 out of 4 of every group, or higher, supported the idea of passing a law that says Congress cannot increase the national debt as a share of the overall economy, except in war, disaster, or recession. What do you think about that? I mean, it's obviously not on the books, is it?
Right.
even though 80% of the public support it, and 87% of Republicans supported this in 2015, and they now have had a majority of Congress for the last 2 years, as well as, or year and a half, 2 years, and the presidency, but they didn't pass that.
Nope.
What do you think about that?
Well, the one thing,
because I could go on for the next 20 minutes and wrap up the show on that alone.
I know.
So
so many of these things, I think you'll listen to, and it's like, you'll either say, that's not already the way it is. Like, it's like, this is just, it makes sense. Or it's, why hasn't anybody done this before? And they're both very reasonable reactions. To me, this one is a no-brainer. If you want to spend money, you have to be able to prove that there's a justification for how we'll pay for it. It can't just be, well, I just want to spend the money. It can't be that unless, as they point out, we're in a truly, potentially devastating scenario. Then we got to spend the money because, obviously if we're being invaded, we can't take time to debate how we're going to pay for it. We got to defend ourselves. Or, if there's a recession, things like that. Those make sense as exceptions. That's like one of the biggest changes in here that I think is a game changer if you do that, because it forces our elected officials to be able to justify their spending, which they don't have to do right now. They can do. Republicans, Democrats, they've all done it. Here's this great thing, and we're going to pay for it because it could maybe in 10 years be generating all this great stuff. No. No, that's not how it works. You have to show how we're going to pay for it now, which means sacrifices in the negotiating. So bipartisan support in Congress, and 8 out of 10 Americans support it, and it wasn't done. Yep. That is a perfect example of the American people overwhelmingly saying, we support this. And True Chat's familiar with this because we just were talking with our local government, and basically your government turning to you and saying, we don't care that you want to do it and that you support it, even though we're your representatives. We're just not going to do it. So, Because reasons, and It's like, what? So, yep. Okay. So we can go on to the next
one. And this is kind of interesting when you think about it. A 2-year budget. Mm-hmm. And it's in the news now that Congress is trying to pass a budget that expires, I think, at the end of October or the middle of October. And they're trying to get it passed through the midterm elections. So we don't even have a 1-year budget in place. We've had a series of month by month budgets. But the next idea is a 2-year budget, which makes sense. Number one, because you quit spending all the time on budget ideas. But members of the House of Representatives, which are in charge of the money type bills, are elected for a 2-year term. So it would make sense that they could get a budget. Okay, I'm here for 2 years. This is the budget we're going to work under for the 2 years I'm here. That makes sense. But the current budget and spending process in Congress is completely broken as budget and spending bill deadlines are routinely missed. I.e., we just give you a couple of examples.
We've been talking about that for 7 years.
Implement a biennial or a 2-year budget process, allowing Congress to spend 1 year on appropriations and freeing up additional time for oversight activities. 56% of the public supported this. 61% of the Democrats in Congress supported it. 53% of Republicans supported it, and 52% of independents. So not as much as support, but still a majority of every group supported this idea. So what do you think of that, Justin? A 2-year budget when we have a Congress who basically is making it month by month.
Right. Currently. I think anything to the amount of time that Congress spends, and they should, because one of their chief responsibilities is how to spend the people's money. So it makes sense they spend time on it. But the amount of overwhelming time that gets spent on that leaves little to no time, as Lance was describing, which is from No Labels directly, for them to perform their oversight and discretionary activities, because they're so caught up in we can't ever get. By the time we get this done, which is almost always late, it feels like anymore, then it's already time to start debating the next one. And it's just this endless cycle of debate the budget, and never do things. Or at least that's what it feels like. I think I'll hold off any additional comment until you read the next one, because I think they kind of go, in my mind, they go hand in hand. I think they're both significantly more value if they're paired together.
Okay. Well, the next one is called No Budget, No Pay. And out of each group, the public and Democrats, Republicans, and independents, 8 out of 10 support this. Okay. If the congressional appropriations spending process is not completed by the start of a new federal fiscal year, congressional pay ceases as of October 1st and isn't restored until appropriations are completed. Now, I only have one question, and I'm not sure you can answer this. But does that mean I would hope this means they don't get back pay.
Right.
Because then it doesn't do any good. It doesn't say, but I hope it means that, okay, as long as you don't have it passed, you're losing money, because it does no good if they then pass it in January and you recoup your losses. That's really not a punishment.
Right.
So I hope this means that
you lose it.
You lose it. You're not getting it back ever. But again, 8 out of 10 in the public, Democrats, Republicans, independents was 79%. But so I'm fudging it there,
but they're almost
8. All right.
Okay.
So you said you wanted to talk about them concurrently, no budget, no pay,
yes,
and a 2-year budget. So what are your thoughts there?
One is it alleviates, as that highlighted, it's the chief, like I said, it's the chief responsibility of Congress to decide how to spend our money, to appropriate the funds. And if they can't get that done, then they're not doing their job, which means they should not be paid. Because you know what? That's how it works everywhere else, except for them for some reason. And if you're going to represent the people, then you shouldn't get special exceptions to how you're paid when you can't do your job. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know about you, Lance, but if I was going to pay somebody to do a job and they just said, nah, we're not going to do it right now. We'll do it, whenever we feel like, and you can just hang in the wind until then, I would find somebody else to do the job. So yeah, I think this one, again, seems like a no-brainer.
Makes sense.
If you don't get the budget done on time, then every day, that it's not done, you will continue to lose your pay for until you get it done, which is your job.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that making it easier to get it done. The 2-year thing's interesting. I've struggled with that some because I appreciate the legitimate argument to why it needs to be a year-to-year budget. At the same time, a lot of the spending items don't drastically change 1 year at a time. There are exceptions, when new things come into play, but it also means that you should have more time to get everything ready that you want to put into the budget.
But for example, our state, the state of Ohio, has a biennial budget.
Right. So we know it can work. I mean,
and so schools and firefighters and policemen and everybody who gets funds from the state has to plan their budget for a 2-year period. I mean, other people are doing it. I don't know if every state does it.
Right.
But I know where we live in Ohio, and then being a public school teacher, it was always, wait for the governor's, wait for the biennium, wait for the governor's budget to come out, and you'll know what you're going to get for the next 2 years. And then we can negotiate because we'll know how much money the school district has to work with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I spent my entire professional working career under that system. So I don't see why it's such a big deal.
Here's the next one, maybe of these items. Like I said, the first one, that Fiscal Responsibility Act, that one to me was like one of the biggest. It probably is the biggest of these ideas. This next one, though, is like the one that's like, why aren't we doing this? Mm-hmm. Idea number 51, and there's just 6 in this section, but they're labeled in the book as total ideas.
Yeah, so you made me say I said 1, 2, 3.
I know.
You could have taken over for 4.
This is 4. Is buy in bulk.
Yeah.
Require that the federal government buy its goods and services in bulk at lower costs rather than agencies buying goods and services separately. Recent legislation introduced in Congress, the Buy Smarter and Save Act, estimated savings of almost $10 billion in the first 2 years and $7.5 billion in the following 3. What? This is one of those.
Here, I got it for him.
What?
Yeah. Well, like when I wanted to buy something for my classroom, I had to go get the Walmart card, right?
Yeah.
From central office, from the treasurer. Okay. So if you're working for the federal government, you got to go get the Costco card from the president and go buy it. I mean, how hard is that? Or the government, now get this one. Here's one for you. I just thought of this. The government could get a membership with Amazon Prime and it's free shipping.
That's right.
They could buy stuff and have it shipped anywhere in the United States to government offices, to federal government offices, and Amazon would pay for the shipping. How big of a cost would that be? You could buy in bulk from Amazon, and if you had an Amazon Prime account for the U.S. government, they would get free shipping. We could save all kinds of money.
Yep.
I'm being really facetious here, folks, but at the same time, duh.
Right.
Why wouldn't you?
Right.
I mean,
why?
It's really not as dumb as you think about it when you stop to think about it.
I mean,
why would you not buy? Hey, we need 3 hammers. Go buy 3 hammers. Oh, well, they need 3 hammers in Spokane, Washington. Okay, well, here's money. Go buy your 3 hammers. Why not just buy 20,000 hammers from somebody? We need a hammer. Okay, we'll ship it out to you. And you got the U.S. Postal Service that needs money anyway.
We can take some of that money we'll be saving and generate money for our own agency that loses money.
Jiminy Christmas. I mean, people say
this isn't a little itty bitty savings.
Well, you're talking about $21 trillion. What's $10 billion? Really?
Yeah. Well, how about all the things that we talk about so many of the things that Lance and I have talked about wanting to do cost way less than $10 billion. Little things, all the time, all these programs or additional research. I mean, what would $10 billion get you in medical research?
Right.
These things make a difference. And it's just a stupid, it's like, what?
Yeah,
why is it even allowed to happen this way? This is another
easy, no-brainer concept that saves money.
And support, you've got 82% overall public support, 83% Dems, 85% Republicans, 79% independents. I don't know what's up with the independents. They're weird.
I mean, you don't go to the store and buy 1 roll of toilet paper.
Right.
And then go back, 3 days later and buy another roll of toilet paper or whatever. You buy probably a 4 or a 6 or, my wife won't let me, but I want to buy the 32, because that's the biggest thing. But we don't have,
you know what I do?
We don't have any storage.
I order my toilet paper from Amazon.
Free delivery. See, you're covering my idea. There you know. You stole my idea. See,
and here's the crazy thing, Lance. You
save on travel and expenses, and like our last show, you're being energy efficient because you're not spending the gas.
It builds on itself, and not only do you save money doing it that way, save time. You also, and this is a big one, it can be delivered when you know you're going to run out.
Hey, 4 o'clock. It's time for I just had Taco Bell for lunch. I need some toilet paper.
Yeah.
Right on, baby.
That's right.
I'm on my way to the bathroom. Thanks for the delivery.
So, it's,
oh gosh,
it's just, sorry. This one, I know we're spending unfair time on it.
But if I don't have fun with this, I'll pull out what little white hair I have left.
I know.
Because these are all so basic. And again,
this one doesn't even require Congress, though. That's the thing.
The
president could say tomorrow to his administration, all agencies will now be purchasing things collectively. Yep. And it's done. That's all it takes.
And your order is due at blank day of the month for the next month.
I bet you could even save more than that, because I don't know. I haven't read enough about the buy smarter and save. But if there was, you eliminate all the individual purchasers across agencies and you consolidate them into one government purchasing department.
Right.
And they purchase everything.
Again, just like business does, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Capital budgets to plan for the long term. The federal government has a problem not only with how much money it spends, but how the money is spent. Unlike most businesses and many state governments, the federal government essentially treats all spending the same, despite the fact that some kinds of spending, like infrastructure, deliver significant economic return and should therefore be accounted for differently. The federal government budget should be separated into 2 parts: a capital budget for long-term investments such as research and infrastructure, and an operating budget for annual expenses. 70% of the public support it, 73% of Democrats, 74% of Republicans, 65% of independents.
Again, it makes sense, right? I mean, we just talked about infrastructure. We've talked about, research. So here it is. Let's split it up. Let's make sure everything is looked at and everything is taken care of. Because as you know, again, all of this can be applied to the individual consumer. We have to do these things. You have to plan, okay, what's my long term? What's if you're going to be successful? And these are things that just should be done. But again, now here's one for your education piece, Mr. Justin, how you talk about, we don't teach this in school. It seems so obvious to you and I, and we said, it's common sense, but is it really when it's not taught anywhere?
But our representatives, most of them, understand these principles. I agree with you. I think it should be taught to the people, because how can the people demand something if they don't know, if they don't understand it? But at the same time, part of the reason we elect these people is to know what we don't know, and to do the things that need to be done that we might not know of.
You know what I like? We're always big on this with our listeners, but our listeners should go to the webpage, the government webpage, and ask their congressman why these weren't passed.
These are a great one to contact.
These were all,
why 7
to 8 out of 10, 70 to 80% on almost all of them. There's one in the 50s, but are wholly supported by. We're talking about bipartisanship. You guys all said you people, you Congress people, all said you agreed with these, or a large majority of you said you agreed with these. How come none of these have been passed in the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. It doesn't matter who got elected, because you all said, the majority of you said you supported all of these ideas. Why aren't these passed? So at the end of the show, I'm going to have Justin slowly read all 6 of these off to you so you can include them in your email. But I think this is just obvious that there needs to be some accountability here.
Yeah.
You can't say that you agree with these things and a majority of you all agree with them and then you can't get them passed. There's no reason not to pass them because the majority of you said you agreed.
So if
number 6, sorry.
Yeah. If there's another one like, number 4, it's number 6. Why aren't we doing this? Sell underused government assets such as real estate. According to the Office of Management and Budget, the federal government owns 1.2 million buildings, structures, and land parcels, including 14,000 buildings and structures that are currently designated as excess and 55,000 that are identified as under or not utilized. 14,000 buildings and structures currently designated as excess and 55,000 identified as under or not utilized. Why do we have them? My hairs are going to turn gray. My goodness. I mean, this is just...
Well, not only would you make money by selling them because then you're no longer responsible for them or whatever, but then how many small businesses or houses or whatever could be created in this space. Mm-hmm. So now not only are you going to reap the benefit by getting money for them, which right now they're sitting idle or you don't need them anymore, but it would start new businesses and create new jobs, which then you have more people making money who can pay taxes, which then would be more income. So it's a double, right? It's like double dipping if you're the federal government. You get money because you sold it, and then you'll make money because somebody will start a business there or build a house there, or they'll build something there, and all those construction workers will make more money, and then they'll pay more in taxes.
Yep.
So you're double dipping. You're going to get money off of that land or that building twice. Mm-hmm. Once for selling it and once when it's redesigned or reinvigorated into the economy. Wow. I don't know if I could do that or not. That sounds like that should be illegal.
70% of the public support it, 64% of Democrats, 80% of Republicans, 65% of independents. So
right, sell your assets to balance your budget. Isn't that what people do all the time?
Sell your assets too. I mean, this is
you're selling your assets that you don't use anymore.
Right. It's not even like we're unloading things that we need. We're getting rid of things that are categorized by the government. So this isn't outside the government.
A government yard sale.
The government's saying that we either don't use it or it's a situation, for example, where we've got 25 people in a building designed for 100, or it's one of those. Why are they there? Let's put them in together in different areas. And that way we're not wasting all this space in buildings that we don't need. So here they are from start to finish because we got to get out of here. Fiscal Responsibility Act, 2-year budgets, no budget, no pay, buy in bulk, capital budget to plan for the long term, sell underused government assets such as real estate. You go to contactingcongress.org or .com, whichever you like. Let your congressman know and ask them. And that's been it for today. At TrueChat.org on Facebook and Twitter, for the State of Us on TrueChat in Urbana, Ohio, I'm Justin T. Weller.
And I'm Lance Jackson.
Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on The State of Us. Be the change.
Looking for responsible media? Listen on demand to politics, sports, and more with the TrueChat app or at TrueChat.org. Beyond the horizon, there is trustworthy media at TrueChat.